The issue raised by Trump has already exploded across the US media space, and for good reason. For many Americans, homelessness stopped being some abstract social problem a long time ago. It has become a personal daily experience they encounter right before their eyes. When, on your way to work, you have to weave around tent camps, hear shouting, and face aggressive panhandling, your tolerance wears thin quickly. Trump knows this all too well. He's striking precisely where society's nerve is already raw. Washington is a special case in this regard. Within just a few blocks of the White House, gleaming glass buildings with flags give way to streets lined with tents. It's a contrast that undermines the symbolism. A capital city should be the nation's face, not a chronicle of social collapse. That's why Trump's words resonate with those who are tired of endless promises from the mayor's office and federal authorities, but have yet to see any real change. But behind the slogans lies a dangerous edge. Quickly removing the homeless from the city center is one thing. Addressing the reasons they are there in the first place is quite another. In the US, a significant portion of the homeless population suffers from mental illness or addiction. Simply transporting them out of town without offering medical or social support won't solve the problem. It will just move it elsewhere. Critics are already sounding the alarm. They warn that such measures could lead to human rights violations and Washington could find itself at the heart of a major scandal. But Trump doesn't seem fazed. On the contrary, judging by his rhetoric, he's ready to use a hardline approach as a pillar of his election campaign. His goal is to show that he acts fast, decisively, and isn't afraid of liberal criticism. And here's where it gets interesting. This isn't the first such initiative in US history. Back in the 1980s, New York carried out massive street sweeps when Mayor Rudy Giuliani declared war on street crime and homelessness. Yes, crime rates fell, but thousands of people ended up in overcrowded shelters or simply vanished from public view. Urban policy experts note that Washington has already tried housing-first programs, where housing was provided without preconditions, followed by support services. These projects showed promising results but demanded enormous funding and time, making them ill-suited for the kind of quick wins Trump specializes in. Looking at the bigger picture, the homelessness issue in the US is tied directly to housing prices, access to healthcare, and the level of social support. And here lies the key question. Is Trump prepared to tackle the problem comprehensively, or will this come down to a single, loud, theatrical action in the heart of the Capitol? Monday's press conference promises to be a moment of truth. If he presents a concrete plan with timelines, funding, and infrastructure, it will be a bombshell. If, however, it turns out to be just another political manifesto, the story will end like dozens of similar campaigns, with a temporary cleanup of the streets, followed by the tent's return in a matter of months. For now, Washington residents wait, some with hope, others with apprehension. One thing is certain, this topic will become one of the key battlegrounds in the political fight ahead of the elections, and the loudest part of this story is yet to come. If Trump's plan does move forward, the first phase will almost certainly focus on visibility, making sure the central streets, parks, and tourist areas are clean in the literal sense. That means law enforcement, city workers, and possibly even National Guard units will be mobilized to dismantle tent camps. The images will be dramatic. City trucks hauling away piles of belongings, rows of temporary housing buses waiting to relocate people far from downtown. Such scenes, broadcast nationwide, could serve as a visual centerpiece for Trump's campaign message. Look, I promised action, and here it is. However, the real test will begin the moment the media lights fade. The relocated individuals will not simply disappear. They will need food, shelter, and medical care. Without that, displacement will only breed new clusters of homelessness in suburban and rural areas, shifting the crisis instead of resolving it. It's exactly this out of sight, out of mind effect that critics say undermines long-term solutions. There's another layer to the story: business interests. Washington's central districts are home to federal offices, embassies, high-end hotels, and tourist attractions. For many, in the hospitality and real estate sectors, clearing the streets of visible poverty is not just about safety. It's about restoring property values and ensuring the city remains attractive to investors. That alignment between economic motives and Trump's law and order rhetoric could make the initiative politically durable, even if its social consequences are controversial. But here's the twist most people might overlook. Once you set a precedent for mass relocations based on urban aesthetics and public safety, the policy could be expanded far beyond homelessness. Civil liberties organizations fear a slippery slope where public spaces are increasingly sanitized in ways that prioritize appearance over inclusivity. Historically, when US leaders have framed homelessness primarily as a security threat, public opinion has tended to swing toward harsher measures. Polls already show a growing willingness among urban residents to support tough, immediate action, especially after high-profile incidents of violence involving homeless individuals. The emotional argument is powerful. Parents want to feel safe walking with their children, commuters don't want to navigate encampments, and businesses don't want storefronts blocked. In Trump's playbook, that emotional momentum is gold. If he can connect it to broader themes of taking back America's cities and restoring national pride, this Washington experiment could become a template for other urban centers like Los Angeles, San Francisco, or Portland, where homelessness is even more visible. The next chapter of this story will likely depend on Monday's press conference. Will Trump offer a genuine policy framework or a media spectacle? And perhaps the bigger question, will voters care about the difference as long as the streets look clean by November? To understand the full stakes of Trump's proposal, it's worth looking at how other countries have dealt with homelessness and why their successes and failures matter for Washington. In Japan, for example, urban homelessness is minimal compared to US cities, largely due to a combination of strong community networks, accessible public housing, and a cultural emphasis on collective responsibility. But that system is sustained by strict social norms and a relatively low level of income inequality, factors the US can't easily replicate. Meanwhile, in cities like Vancouver and Helsinki, the housing-first model has become a gold standard. Authorities provide permanent housing as a starting point, not as a reward for meeting certain conditions. Once a person has a safe place to live, they receive counseling, addiction treatment, and job training. The results have been impressive. Long-term homelessness drops, and public costs decline over time. But there's a catch. It requires massive, sustained investment and political will to keep funding flowing year after year. That's a far cry from the quick, headline-grabbing action Trump is promising. There's also a cautionary tale from Rio de Janeiro, ahead of the 2016 Olympics. In an effort to beautify the city for visitors, local authorities launched a rapid sweep of homeless populations, pushing them out of tourist zones. For a few months, the streets looked cleaner, but within a year, the numbers were back to pre-Olympics levels, only now spread into less visible but more dangerous neighborhoods. Here's the crucial point. The optics of homelessness are often as politically important as the reality. Leaders tend to prioritize visible results, clear sidewalks, tent-free parks, because those images resonate instantly with voters. But without tackling root causes like mental health care gaps, skyrocketing rents, and wage stagnation, the problem remains. Trump's strategy may be banking on that very dynamic. If his administration can clear Washington's core by election season, it sends a powerful message to supporters. We took back the Capitol and we can do the same for the rest of America. Whether or not the relocated individuals have a path to stability becomes secondary in the public mind, at least in the short term. Still, the long-term consequences could be significant. Dispersing homeless populations often makes it harder for outreach workers to provide consistent support. It can fracture fragile community ties among the homeless themselves, leading to deeper isolation. And if rural or suburban areas suddenly see an influx of displaced individuals without resources, local governments, often with smaller budgets, will face crises of their own. So, while Trump frames the plan as restoring beauty and safety to the nation's capital, critics warn it could simply push the crisis beyond the city limits, out of sight, but not out of existence. The coming months will reveal whether this is the start of a genuine urban policy shift, or just another chapter in America's long history of moving poverty out of the camera frame. Politically, Trump's move could be a calculated gamble with high reward and high risk. In the short term, a visible cleanup of Washington might resonate strongly with his base, and with independents frustrated by what they see as urban decay. The images of spotless streets and restored monuments could be woven directly into campaign ads, paired with his familiar rally line: "We're making America's cities great again." But here's where it gets tricky. Homelessness is not just a blue city problem. Many Republican-led states also struggle with rising housing costs, fentanyl-related crises, and underfunded mental health systems. If Trump sets a national precedent for aggressive removals, pressure could mount on GOP governors to follow suit. In some cases, they might find themselves facing the same backlash from civil rights groups, churches, and local communities that Democratic mayors have endured. There's also the generational factor. Younger voters, especially Gen Z and millennials, tend to see homelessness through a lens of systemic inequality rather than personal failure. To them, forcibly relocating people without clear, long-term solutions can feel like punishment for being poor. If Trump's plan is seen as purely cosmetic, it could deepen his already steep challenge with younger demographics.